Welcome to SNAP, Survivors of Narcissistic and Abusive Personalities. This educational recovery podcast is presented by Claremont Mental Health and Mandy Friedman, licensed professional clinical counselor. This presentation contains vital information for survivors of abuse. Topics include the spectrum of abusive personalities, targets of abuse, abusive relationships, and survivors in recovery. We hope this information helps you gain solid footing and clarity as you navigate your road to recovery.
Hello everyone, Mandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional, the creator of SNAP, Survivors of Narcissistic and Abusive Personalities, and the owner of Claremont Mental Health. Today I want to talk about that moment when the abuser says, I see the real you now. You know what I'm talking about. All right, let's back up for a second. What do abusers and manipulators seek to do? Control. That's a big one, right? They want to control you. Sometimes they just flat out seek to destroy because it makes them feel powerful to, break you down to the point where you don't even know who you are anymore. That gives them a real sense of power. So a couple of the tactics that they like to use is purposeful mischaracterization and purposeful misunderstanding. You can explain your reasoning, your motivations as to why you did something, where that was coming from. You could explain it to death, be as clear as possible, and yet they still just can't seem to get it. And they still keep drawing the same conclusion, which is that you're a terrible person, you had ulterior motives. But yeah, there's this moment when, and we'll just assume that this is an intimate partner relationship. And, normally, my clients are the types that they really love that emotional connectedness, a shared understanding and clarity, and like feeling emotionally close, and will be very honest, very open and vulnerable about their most intimate and deepest, darkest secrets even. Will share those kinds of things in order to let the other person know who they are and to let the other person know that you're not perfect and that you're not judgmental and things like this. So you'll kind of open up about things and they weaponize this information and it gets used against you. But for some reason, there's something very triggering, something very upsetting when they say the thing that sounds something like what I said a minute ago. I see the real you. In other words, that you have been misrepresenting yourself and that you have ulterior motives, you have an agenda, and that you're faking it for everyone, and that really you're not a good person. Everyone thinks you're a good person, but I know the real you, and I know that you're actually selfish and lazy and greedy, and you're a whore, or whatever it is that they choose to call you, and they're going to mischaracterize you. What does that do to you? Puts you in the mode of defense. And now you're explaining yourself and why you do things. And then a lot of you wind up working with me and you're still explaining and still explaining, explain. And here's why I did it. And I was going to do it this way, but then I chose not to because this other thing happened. But I just wanted you to know that the reason that I did it was because of this and not because of this. Sound familiar? Right. So we get into this nervously explaining ourselves. It's like muscle memory almost. When you have been with an abuser who's very controlling and constantly accusing you of things, constantly mischaracterizing you. So let's say present day, right? Let's say the abuse is over. Let's say you're on the other side of it and now you're navigating new healthy relationships. You might find that you talk a little bit maybe too much about some of your intimate details. You're very, very open, very, very transparent. You don't want to wind up in a situation where someone thinks you're someone that you're not. Isn't that interesting? That actually your instinct is to be transparent, forthcoming, to show yourself warts and all so the person knows what they're getting into. Like that's your tendency, is to be that honest. So since you've been accused before of misrepresenting yourself, or I see the real you, then in future dating scenarios, you might even be more explanatory. And, I was in this relationship and, it does sound really bad, but I did get out of it and it was because of this. And then I learned this and I did this thing. And you're really just letting people know all about yourself. If somebody mischaracterizes you today, you might find it to be triggering. You really don't like to be mischaracterized. My favorite is when a client that I've been working with for a long time, I know who they are as a person. I know what they've been through. I know where their heart is. And they'll start off a sentence by saying, I know this really sounds like I'm a horrible person, but I just want to tell you my reasonings for doing this. And, I know I'm not perfect. I hear that a lot. I know I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. I know I have a lot of things I need to work on. I know that I'm here in therapy because, I have my own flaws. They say it's like qualifying constantly. Like, I know that I'm a mess too. Or like that you're saying something true about your abuser who was an asshole, a piece of shit, treated you like garbage, treated the kids like garbage, until all of a sudden when they want to have a parenting relationship, when that's in question during a divorce, all of a sudden they want 50-50, even though they weren't around 50-50 ever, like the whole entire time, right? Okay. So yeah. All right. I'm going to wrap it up. I am ranting just a little bit because it feels like that a lot of those accusations are kind of hypocritical. Are they not? I mean, you're being accused of misrepresenting yourself. You're being accused of having an agenda, while they are extracting personal information from you and weaponizing it in order to destroy your identity, destroy your perceptions, destroy your sense of intuition or your instincts, to make you feel like that you can't trust your own eyeballs and what you see, to make you feel like you don't even really know who you are. They're breaking you down psychologically, and then accusing you of being the person who is duplicitous, who has an agenda, who isn't being their true selves. This is coming from someone who, when the mask slips, you know it. And they're pointing the finger at you. Ah! The hypocritical accusations, the hypocritical actions. It's just, I continue to just be in awe of the audacity that some of these abusers have. I mean, just really, man. And if this has happened to you and you still feel triggered by being mischaracterized, I challenge you to be comfortable in your own skin and to be who you are without explaining yourself, saying no without explaining. Yeah, you are you. And you are thoroughly and authentically you. You're not duplicitous. It's not in your nature. That's not really how this particular type is built. We tend to like to have that genuine relationship where we're being honest and open and we're being ourselves. That's when we're the happiest. I think that's it. Okay. Bye-bye. Now, how do I turn it off?
If you like this podcast, subscribe and leave us a review. Find Mandy Friedman, LPCC, CCDVC on YouTube and Facebook. Join the SNAP Survivors of Narcissistic and Abusive Personalities Facebook group and follow us on Instagram @theofficialsnap. Thanks for listening.